Good morning. Well, it's been quite a while since I put one of these videos out, so we got a bit of catching up to do, but right now I'm going to try to keep this rambling brief because we're trying to pack up our home on wheels and get out of here. We're currently sitting at the very bottom of Hell's Canyon on the Idaho side of the Snake River. Miraculously, we got some phone service. We haven't had that for a while. We've been pretty much off the grid for the last few months, and cell service, internet access has been spotty at best. But here, we got a little of it. And one of the first things that popped up on my phone was a news story about how the border going into Mexico, specifically Puerto Penasco, where our little floating home is sitting. It's open. For the first time in months, Puerto Penasco is letting tourists in, which means we can actually check on our boat. It's been sitting in a dry storage lot for almost a year. We haven't seen it in almost a year, and we're a little worried about it, to be honest. It's by far the longest we've been away from our sailboat, and we just like to make sure it's okay. So we're packing up from here and we're hitting the road. We're not really sure how long the border is going to be open. It really hasn't been open for a while, so we're going to race down there, check on the boat, and really just see how it is. More than anything, this trip is just for peace of mind. We're not realistically going to do any work on it, unless it's in dire need of something. But it really is just peace of mind. Check on it, make sure she's sitting okay, and then go from there. Rather than get into what we've been doing, where we've been at, all that kind of stuff right now, we're going to just blast on down to Mexico. We'll see you in Mexico, check on the boat, and then we'll cover a few more things after that. Nice to see ya. I hope you're doing well and safe and happy and all that stuff. See ya. But before we could leave Hell's Canyon behind, we of course had to have one last refreshing dip in the Snake River. Because where we're headed, it's gonna be hot. And once that was taken care of, we packed up our home on wheels and left our waterfront camp spot behind and started driving. And for the next 3 days, well, that's all we did. Turns out Mexico's a whole long ways away from Hell's Canyon. But once we finally did cross the border, there was no doubt about it. We made it to Mexico. Guess what? We made it to Mexico! Woo! Just because we crossed the border, that didn't mean we made it. We still had a whole lot more driving ahead of us. But what was really strange was pulling into Puerto Penasco, which is normally a bustling tourist town, and to see not a soul around. This place was a ghost town. But we weren't there to be tourists. We were there to check on our little floating home. And I gotta say, once we did make it and finally laid eyes on her, it was a pretty great sight to see. It's a tight squeeze. The last time we left our boat sitting in a storage yard, we came back to find a rotted out window seal, a whole lot of water damage, and a ton of tiny bugs all throughout the interior. So this was a little nerve-wracking. We weren't exactly sure what we were going to find. A moment of truth. It's kind of scary. Surprisingly, she looked exactly like we left her. It's a miracle! We only thought we'd be away from her for a couple of months, not for an entire year, so she's a little bit of a disaster. All right, I'm gonna try to keep this pretty brief because first of all, it is blazing hot down here. Holy crap. Sweaty messes. I guess the good news is there's no bugs and there's no water damage. Those are the two big things we're concerned about. So all in all, pretty good news. And other than the outside being completely filthy with dust and grime and funk, she looks exactly like we left her. So we can't ask for anything more. So I think all in all, pretty good news. Nothing to complain about. So really quickly, we're gonna go through the boat, all the cupboards, get rid of any junk that doesn't need to be here, take a few things north across the border with us that we'd like to have in the van, and then put together a pretty good list of things we need to do when we come back. We've already got a pretty good list going, but just double check it, make sure we have all the parts and supplies we need when we come back, because we're gonna have a bunch of stuff to do. We're fully aware of it. And if this boat has to sit for another year, well, there's gonna be a lot of stuff to do. That's just the way it goes. Nothing we can do about it. But all in all, pretty successful trip, I think. We'll talk about it more later. Right now, we're gonna get some stuff done and get out of here so I can stop sweating like crazy. Yep, a year in the stands, and she didn't seem to miss us one bit. But we know when we come back, there's gonna be a ton of work to get her back to ship shape before we can go sailing again. So while we were there, all we did was clean up a little bit, toss away some garbage, cover up a few things with some new tarps, and then locked her up, and we were out of there. After we said goodbyes, we relegated ourselves from our floating home back into our little home on wheels. And you might think, since we are done with our boat, we would probably just head straight for the border and leave Mexico behind. But that's not exactly how we roll. We are in Mexico after all, so we found ourselves a nice spot to camp on the beach and enjoyed a little Mexico time. This is the first time I can ever remember seeing an empty beach in a touristy town in Mexico. We had this place all to ourselves. And I gotta say, after a long few days of driving and a good 8 hours of sweat-inducing work on the boat, it was a pretty nice way to end our day. Bright and early the next morning, we were out of there. We had a whole lot of driving ahead of us to find ourselves some cooler weather, because summertime in Mexico is way too hot. We're back! We made it to the States! We survived! Barely. It was hot down there. Whew. Well, the boat's doing okay. It's nice to see. No bugs, no water damage, no really anything other than a whole lot of grime and filth and dust and dirt and what have you. So about as good as we could hope for. Getting in and out of Mexico was a piece of cake. Getting into Puerto Penasco, there was a health screening check where we got out of the van. They sterilized us and the van, which was interesting, but then put a sticker on the van that said we were free and clear to go. We drove to Puerto Penasco, and that was that. Getting out of Mexico was no issue whatsoever. Drove up to the border. The Border Patrol agent even recognized us from last time and sent us on our merry way. Piece of cake other than a lot of driving and a lot of heat. But yeah, the border crossing's piece of cake, but we did find out the day after we crossed the border back into the States, the Mexican border going into Puerto Penasco closed again for non-essential travel. So we were really fortunate we got down there in time, got a little peace of mind with the boat, and then got out of there. Yeah, and word right now is that it's not even going to be reopened through at least September, as far as I know, possibly extended longer. It's just kind of a crazy time. So for the last week or so since we left Mexico, we've been slowly hopping our way north. We're really just looking for cooler weather because it is hot. We're not really all that excited about melting. Right now we're at 9,500 feet of elevation next to Fish Lake in Utah, and it's gorgeous, and the weather's pretty good too. So I think for now, I just want to quickly touch on what we've been up to for the last few months and then what we got coming up. Really, the last few months we've been doing our normal routine of just cruising around, seeing stuff out in the boonies. This little home on wheels has been, well, kind of amazing. When we first built this, I knew it would be a handy thing to have, but nobody knew a pandemic was coming and we would need to live somewhere besides our boat. So it's been really handy to have this van and be able to still live this lifestyle, even though it is not as free and open as it used to be, but still be able to use this van and travel around and see cool stuff. It's kind of amazing, really. And what's more amazing is how much amazing stuff there is to see. We've been full-time traveling for over 6 years now, and at some point you'd think you've run out of things. But everywhere there's cool stuff. You just got to get out and see it. And we're pretty fortunate that we can in this thing. So, the last few months we've been in some pretty amazing places out in the boonies and having a pretty great time. Brenda's injury is healing up. She can hike, she can bike, she can walk. She's definitely not back to normal, but she's doing pretty good. So, for the next little while, we don't really know what we're going to do. It's hurricane season down in Mexico, so even if we could have put the boat in the water and gone sailing, it's not the right time of year for it. So realistically, this van is going to be our mode of transportation for quite a while, until things get somewhat back to normal. I can't really say that we ever planned on spending this much time in the van, but that's all we got. So we're going to make the best of it. We don't exactly know what we're going to do once the weather turns to cold and windy and snowy. We'll figure that out as we get there, but we've got some pretty good ideas. May go fishing for a while, may go skiing for a while. Who knows? We'll figure that out as it comes. I'll try to keep you posted. The last thing I want to talk about before I wrap this up today is these videos in general. The last handful of months, I haven't really lugged a camera around other than my cell phone to snap a few photos from my own personal memories. But it's been kind of nice, really. And I don't know that I'm super interested in making a whole bunch more of these travel log kind of things. We'll see. I may change my mind, but it's been kind of nice just enjoying all this stuff we've been seeing and doing for ourselves. And what that means for you and me, I don't know. I'm still going to probably do some videos here and there, but it's probably just going to happen when we're in some spectacular place that I just can't help but share. Other than that, most of this we're just going to enjoy for ourselves. But the one thing I do want to cover is how the van is built, our electrical system, our water system, you name it, things of how this van goes together, because we get questions about it all the time. I We'll also probably cover some stuff about our boat and about hopefully getting down there to do some work and get sailing again. If we have news on that front, I'll put it out there for you to see as well. So we'll still put out videos here and there. Just probably not the same thing you've been used to. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But I think that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. That's it. See ya.